Stello is a new way to send newsletters that are secure and interactive. And in this video, we'd like to show you how you can move from MailChimp to Stello as easily as possible. But you can also watch this video to understand more about Stello in general as well. So we've just installed Stello. So we're going to continue. We're going to accept the privacy policy in terms of use. And now we're in the dashboard. So the first thing we want to do is get all our contacts from MailChimp into Stello. So on the left in the sidebar, I'm going to go to the contacts page. And since we have no contacts, it's going to prompt us to import them. Now Stello has an option to import from MailChimp right here, so let's click that. And there's a video explaining how to do it, but since we're going to explain it right now, we don't need to watch that. At the bottom here, you see the steps that we need to do to get all our contacts from MailChimp into Stello. So let's start with step one, which is to go to the contacts page in MailChimp. Now, if you're already signed into your MailChimp account, you'll go straight to the correct page. And as you can see in this test account, I've just got 2 contacts, though you will likely have many, many more than that. But for the purpose of demonstration, let's just export these 2 contacts. So on the right here, you want to click Export Audience, which is the term MailChimp uses for contacts. And now when MailChimp exports the audience, it doesn't actually export it in terms of letting you download it just yet. You have to click another button, which is Export as CSV in the bottom right there. So we're going to export that member export that we've already done. We're going to export it as CSV to download it. So let's click that. Right, that's downloaded the CSV file and it's also wrapped it up in a zip. Now Stello understands both, so we don't have to worry about those details. Let's just go back to Stello. So as you can see, we've already done steps 2 and step 3. And so all we need to do is load that zip file now. So let's do that. Go to our downloads and there it is. Right, now we can see our contacts that we had in MailChimp, and Stello is asking us if they look correct, because you can select different columns such as address and phone number. You want to make sure that you've got the right column selected. And in this case, Stello has already picked the right columns. So let's import these 2 contacts, and there you go. Should be as simple as that to get all your contacts from MailChimp into Stello. You can also see on the left here that Stello has automatically created a group for our new contacts. So all of your imported contacts will be in this group that we can now rename to something more memorable. And that's pretty much it when it comes to moving from MailChimp to Stello. You don't need to worry about moving any templates across because Stello works very differently to MailChimp in that regard. To explain, let's go and create a new draft message. And you'll see that it says add a section. So at the moment we have an empty message with no sections. That's the first thing to understand about Stello, is that it works by creating different sections of a message. And the reason for that will become clear very shortly. But to start off, let's just create a text section. We're going to say Dear Contact, and we want to put their name in there. So we're going to press the hash key and it's going to pop up different fields that we can choose to insert dynamically that will change depending on the circumstances. So in this case, we want the contact's name. So let's put that in there. And so we're addressing them by name, and that will get replaced with their actual name when it's sent. So we have our first text section. Now we want to write something more. We want to write something about our family. So let's create a new heading here. Stello gives the option to create different things like headings and lists. So instead of having a toolbar at the top you might be used to with Word, instead Stello creates everything in line. So let's create a heading, say My Family News. All right, so now we've got a new section that we're writing here, but while we could write our entire message in this one text section, actually I'm going to move this to a new section. And I'll explain why in a moment. So let's create a new text section and put it in here instead. And the reason for that is that now I can enable responses for both of these sections, and people can comment on them as different sections or react to them. And this is very useful when in terms of having different sections with different moods or different news. For example, maybe this section has some happy news and people might react joyfully to it, whereas maybe the next thing I want to talk about is some disappointments that have happened. And then obviously it wouldn't be appropriate to react the same way to that. And so Stello allows you to have different sections so that your recipients can respond in different ways to them. And this also makes it much easier to move around things as well. So if you create different sections, you can change their order very quickly, just like that, by pressing these arrow keys here. And also you can arrange sections next to one another, like this. So I've put these two sections next to each other with this button here where I can separate them again. And that looks great on a desktop computer, but on mobile, Stello will automatically revert to a single column format so that the text doesn't look all squished like it does in traditional emails. Well, this is still looking pretty bland, so let's add an image section. So I'm going to use this button here. And usually you'll probably want to upload some personal images into your message. But in this case, I'm just going to use some example images from this free image website. And you can actually right click and copy any image on a website and stick it straight into Stello without having to download it, just like that. Right, so now we've added an image to our message. And this is taking up more space than I want it to, so I'm going to stick that next to that text section I created over here. Right, well, actually I want to add more images. And the beautiful thing about Stello is that it's interactive. So unlike an email where you're stuck with one image, you can actually turn this into a slideshow, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go back to that image sharing website. I'm going to pick a different image. I'm going to do the same thing, going to copy and paste it in. And now, as you can see, I've got both images in here. I'm going to have one more just to demonstrate it further. Right, so I've added another image. Now I've got a slideshow. And so if I click done, you'll see that my image has turned into a slideshow automatically. And now I can flick through those different images, and that's what your readers will be able to do as well. So that's a great way to include lots of interesting images in your message without taking up lots of space. And your readers will be able to comment and react to each individual image as well. So those are the basics of writing messages. You can also add videos, add charts and file attachments. I'm going to demonstrate one more method of using images to make your messages look very professional. To do that, I'm going to create an image section at the top here. I'm going to go back to that image sharing website just as an example. I'm going to copy an image and I'm going to paste it in, and as you can see, I've done the same as I did before, but this time this button on the top right here that says banner style, I'm going to enable that. Now this gives the image a bit of an interesting shape, which you'll see shortly in the message, but I also want to add some text that will appear. Usually when you write text for an image, it will be a caption underneath, but in this case, when it's banner style, it's going to be overlaid on top. And now you can see that this image has taken up the full width of the message, so it looks nice and professional, flush against the edges, has that interesting shape, and has my title for it. And that's how you can instantly create a professional looking message with very little effort. Although I feel like this is a bit of a tall image for a header, so I'm going to click on that image again and I'm going to edit it. So I'm going to crop it so that it is shorter. There we go. All right, that's looking better. You can also, depending on your preference, change the screen to look dark or light. And you may not use this while you're editing messages, but it's extremely important for your readers, because if you're reading on your phone at night, you don't want a bright white screen shining in your face. Instead, many users prefer to have a dark screen so it doesn't hurt their eyes while they're reading at night. And that's this button will always be available for readers to click, regardless of whether you've clicked it yourself or not. And now, one last thing I might show is how you can further edit images. And for this example, it's best to have some people in the images. So I'm just going to search for some stock family photos. I'm going to put the family photo in here, and maybe you don't want your children to be identified in this photo. So I'm going to use the redact tool here to hide their faces. There we go. And you can also apply some filters if you like. I'm going to add a vintage filter to this image. And you can crop and rotate as well. So those are just simple image modifications you can make to your message. All done with very little effort, not having to open up an image editor. Now there's many more things to the editor, and so there is an editor guide displayed below every message. So if you ever get lost or unsure about something, you can just check out that guide, which explains everything, how to move sections around, how responses work, how to format text, etc. And usually you'll want to hide that guide so you can focus on your message, but if you ever want to refer back to it again, you can just see that question mark down the bottom will open up the guide again. Great, all right, so I've got a basic message with some images and text. So it's time to send this. And so to do that, we're going to need to create a sending account. So let's click this button up here to create a sending account. Now, sending accounts, you can create as many as you like. You'll probably want to create one for each individual newsletter you send. For example, if you send to different lists of people, you'll probably want a different account for that, because when people unsubscribe from it, they'll only unsubscribe from one rather than both. Or maybe you want a different account for a personal or a business account, or maybe you're sending in multiple languages. Sending accounts can be used in a variety of ways like that. You can create as many as you like, and it's not linked to your email account, so you can use the same email account for all your sending accounts if you'd like. So Stello always requires a place to store messages when you send them. It's all encrypted, so in storage, no one can read them apart from your recipients. And you can actually host your own storage, but it does require some technical expertise. And so most users will want to just go ahead with Gracious Tech Storage. Gracious Tech is the organization that created Stello. And we provide free storage just to make it easier to use. So I'm just going to click Other and continue in the setup. Now I need to connect my email account. Stello uses your own email account to send messages. This is unlike MailChimp and other services which send messages on your behalf. They actually do it for you. Stello instead connects to your actual email account. And this is great for reducing the chance of going to spam and things like that. So I'm going to connect a Gmail account for this. I've got a test account I'm going to use. And I just need to give Stello permission to send emails. You don't actually need to give Stello permission to read your emails, which is good for your privacy. You just need to give it permission to send them. All right, I've connected my email account, so let's continue. Stello was designed for high security situations, and so There are a variety of security options available, but during setup, you just give Stello a hint at how secure you want things. The more secure you pick, the less convenient it may be for your readers. And so I'm just going to go with standard security for now, which is still very private and very secure still. Great, so I'm going to add some identifying information so that my readers know who's sending to them. Just creating a test account, so just give a random username, and this is where your messages will be displayed at. When people open them, they'll open up a web page, which will be this address, .stello.news. And this is an example of the email that people will get when you send messages. And you want to customize this as much as possible so that people trust it's coming from you and it isn't a spam message or anything like that, so they have confidence in opening and reading it. So you definitely want to change this invitation image up here. So I'm going to go back, get a photo of my pretend family, and stick that in so people know that it's from me. And you'll probably want to customize this actual message as well, but I'm just going to leave it as is for the purpose of this video. Great, so we've created a sending account. And now we're almost ready to go. Let's give our message a subject. The subject's just like an email. It's not part of the actual message, but it will show up when people receive emails and notifications. Just going to give it something basic. And we need to select who we're going to send this message to. So let's click our subscribers group that we created when we imported our contacts. Now you can see the button at the top right is bright green, so that means we're ready to go. One last thing I'll just look at is the expiry options. So part of Stello security is that you can make messages expire. Because I did standard security, it's defaulting to a year, but let's say this is a fairly private message. I want it to expire in 4 weeks. Now, if your message is shared too widely, if someone forwards it to a large amount of people that you didn't want them to, one way to avoid situations like that is to set a limit on how many times someone can open a message. So I'm going to put 10 times here. So that means that every recipient can open the message 10 times, but after they've done that, it's going to self-destruct. It's going to instantly expire. Right, well, let's send our message. So I'll click the send button in the top right. And now you're going to see Stello at work. So it's using your email account to send messages, so you can watch it do that. And it succeeded. So our message has been sent. Let's go see if it's been sent by checking our email account of the recipient. This is one of our recipients. And so here's our message. Great. The image has shown up and a little invitation to open the message is there. Going to click and open and view the message that we created. As you can see, you can flick through the slideshow. You can comment. So I'm going to comment on these flowers. I'm going to react rather, and I'm going to comment as well. All right, so I've left a comment, I've reacted, and I'm going to leave a reply at the bottom as well. All responses, replies, reactions are all encrypted, so they're nice and safe, and only you can decrypt them when you open Stello. And anyone can unsubscribe as well or change their address if they would like. For example, I could change my address here without having to ask the author to do it for me. And there's your Stello message. So let's go back into Stello now for a final check at the responses that we just made. So you can see that a couple of responses have shown up already. It checks every few minutes, so I'm going to force it to check again to get that last comment that I sent. And there we go. So our responses will appear under the section that they were commenting on. So you can see that I was commenting on the flowers, and that's my response there. And when I commented on the message in general, that appears separately. Now I'm going to reply to the recipient, which in this case was myself. And when you click send, it creates another Stello message and sends it to them. Except this time it's in the form of a reply. So let's quickly go back to the email account and see that. Go back to my inbox and you see that I have a new reply. Stello has told me that someone has replied. And I also sent a reply to this account as well. So let's have a look at that. Right, so here's my message saying that I've replied, and I'm going to open that reply. And so you can see when you reply to someone, it appears as a Stello message as well, saying thanks for your reply. So this is the recipient seeing what you responded to their message, and so you can in turn reply again, and you can go back and forth just using Stello. So finally, let's go back into Stello, and we've pretty much covered everything. Stello is designed to be easy to use, so there isn't that much to it, which is a good thing. We'll just have a look at some of the settings that are available. So I'm going to go into settings and go into my sending account that I created. Nearly all the settings for Stello are inside sending accounts so that you can customize it for different accounts. So you can change your email address if you need to. I can disable replies and comments if I prefer not to have them. I can change how often Stello notifies me when I get replies. And there's a bunch of security settings and defaults as well. I can also customize how Stello messages appear. If I don't like that default blue, I'm going to change it to orange. And you can also change the style as well and the font. Stello gives you just enough options to make it look the way you want without wasting time fiddling around too much. So I want my messages to look a bit more formal, so it's going to change to the font to a serif font, and corners look a bit straighter, looks a bit more formal. And I can customize all those things that I set up when I initially created the account as well. And there you go, there's Stello. Hopefully this has helped you know how you can smoothly move from MailChimp to Stello. It really doesn't take that much effort, and hopefully you can check out Stello and hope it is very useful for you. So thank you for your time, and feel free to contact support if you ever have any questions or need anything. Thank you.